Hello and welcome again to our reading of Iliad 3. We're up to line 340. So Paris and Menelaus are about to engage in battle. So they, therefore, when their son, literally they'd put on their breastplates. So when they had been arrayed for battle, they put on their armour. Hekaterthen on each side of the host, so on each side of the collected armies, really the homilon, the company. Stikkoonto, it's almost they marched or they paraded into the area between, into the middle of the Trojans and Achaeans. And they were Danon de Com Enoi, and this has been kept over to the next line for emphasis. They were glaring, they were looking terribly. This is an adverb here. They were glaring terribly. And thambos, and fear or terror or amazement. Eken for Achen held the Trojans, the horse-taming Trojans and the well-breathed Achaeans, as horoontos, as they looked on. So it would have been quite a spectacle to see the two of them coming to do battle. Kyra engus statain, now this is a duel here, and the two of them stood near any in the space diametratoi, in the space which had been measured out. And you may recall earlier that I think Odysseus sets up this space in which they're going to fight and measures it out. So the two of them stood near in the space measured out for them. Another duel, say onte, so they were shaking their anchaeos, their spears, kotte onte, dual participle again, being angry, being furious with one another. Prosthe, so it's really first, I suppose, it's in front. So firstly, Paris pro ea. Now this is from pro hieni. So he sent forth his spear. We have this funny epithet here, it's which casts a long shadow. So Paris firstly sent forth his spear which casts a long shadow. Kai Balen, and he struck, from Ballo, this is the aorist without augment, he struck. Now the kata, I think, goes with the Balen, or perhaps with the aspida, so he struck him on the aspida, his shield, which is equal in all directions. In other words, it's circular. Not all shields in Homer, the older styled shields, were not circular. They often had that figure 8 shape, but these ones are circular shields, which of course became the norm in later times. And then genitive here of the son of Atreus. So he struck, perhaps the kata here is with the aspida along. If it went with the balen, you might expect a slightly different accent here, so perhaps we take it with aspida. So he struck down, or he struck on the shield of Atreus, which is well balanced, equal on all sides, equal in every direction, so perhaps circular here. Ud erexen kalkos, nor did the bronze, that is the bronze spear, erexen from regnumi, break it. So break through. But the aikme, the aikme is the point of the spear, anagnamphthai, from anagnamphtomai, or ganampto, I think probably, anagnamto, to bend, and the hoi is dative of the possessor, so the spear point for him was bent. It's passive. Aorus passive here. So although it hit the spear point, the end of the spear bent in the cratere in the strong shield. Hoder deuteron ornithop calco. This is something like, and he, deuteron, well, it means secondly, and this is Menelaus, son of Atreus. He, it's almost then, so he, secondly, he, ornuto, he began to rush forward. This is the ornuma. He began to rush forward, calco, with his bronze, with his spear. So this is an instrumental use here of the dative. So with his spear, and he was epuxamenos, having prayed to Father Zeus. Zeu ana. Now the ana here is a vocative from anax. So these are vocatives. Zeus ana for anax, Lord Zeus. Dos, often used in the sense of grant. Grant tesastai, to get vengeance, and we have to supply out on here as the so grant that he may pay the penalty. He might yes, so grant that he might pay the penalty out on he who proteros previously eorge, this is a perfect from ergo, had performed, had done, kaka, evil things, me in respect of me, or to me. So the ergo is taking two objects here. He's done evil things to me, in the two accusatives. So grant, Lord Zeus, grant that he may tesastai, he might pay the penalty, and we have to understand him, so it's accusative in infinitive, he who previously wrought evil things against me. And then the object of this, the subject of this is in the accusative here, so we don't actually need an out on. We could just take that as the subject of the infinitive here. So grant that glorious Alexander might pay the penalty, he who wrought evil things previously to me. Kai emes, and so the two things here, and so grant that he might do that, and grant that, and Damason, imperative from Damasdo, tame him under my hands, by my hands. It's almost put him in his place, so tame him by my hands. Offer for hina, or for hopos, so that someone, even those of men who are born afterwards, erigesen, from rigio, they might shudder. So they might shudder, or perhaps be loath to erexai, from resdo, to do bad. So it's taking two accusatives here, to do bad things to their xenodokon, to their receiver of guests, so to their host. And then in apposition to that, who, paraske, from pareko, who would provide philotete, kindness, so who will show them who shows them kindness. So it's here that so that anyone, even of those men who were born afterwards, might recoil perhaps from doing bad things to their host, the host who would provide kindness. Era, and thus he spoke, kai pepalone. Now this looks like it's perhaps ampy or something. This is actually, the is from Anna, and you get anapalo, which is to brandish or to shake around, perhaps to aim at. And this is a reduplicated aorist, not perfect, it's a reduplicated aorist participle. And the alpha's disappeared, the news turned into a mu before the labial pi, and so we get ampepalone. So thus he spoke, and brandishing it about, he sent forth, prohiemi again, his spear, which casts a long shadow, kai ballet, and this is exactly the same line we had before, except they've changed the person's name here. And he struck, this time the son of Priam, he struck against the shield, balanced in all directions, of the son of Priam. That's a genitive here. Diamenaspidos aelthe, and the subject here is Ogrimon enkos, so his strong enkos, his sturdy spear, and dia goes with, there's a preverb with aelthe, it passed through the shining shield. Now the main verb here is reisto. Now this is a funny word, this is a pluperfect passive. The verb is erado. And so it means here something like it forced its way. It forced its way through his breastplate, his thorax, which was cleverly, which was very clever, or very intricately made. So it forced its way through his perhaps well-wrought breastplate for the thoracos. And diamese, this is here having cut through. It's from diamao is the verb to cut through. So the spear cut through, understood, his chitona, his tunic, anticru, straight through, beside his laparan. Well, perhaps it's beside his thigh. And there's the subject here, the enkos. So the spear cut through his tunic, straight through beside his thigh. But he, eklinthe, from klino, he turned, although it's aorist passive, it's got an active meaning here, but he turned, and eluato, he avoided black death. Kara can mean fate or death, so he avoided black death. And the son of Atreus, having drawn his sword, which had silver studs, his silver-studded sword, anaskomenos, it's probably something like, not so much holding up his hands, but perhaps holding up the sword, so having raised it into the air, plexen, he struck the phalon. Now there's debate about exactly what the exact meaning of this is. It's often translated as the horn of his helmet, that's a genitive here, chorus, choruthos. It might mean simply the top of the helmet, some sort of boss on the top of the helmet, the phallos. The exact meaning is not known, I think. So he struck the horn of the helmet, raising up his sword. Amphidarauto. And now we get this beautiful line here, with the sound of it is very quite amazing and very effective. Trichtha tekai tetrachtha. And it's meant to be, well, the sound is, it's meant to give you a sound sense of the his sword is broken, and it's broken into 3 or 4 pieces. So, and around it, that is around this helmet, his sword understood. Now we get a dia trufen here. Now this is an interesting verb here. It's from dia thrupto, with a theta here. This is the aorist passive participle and it's neuter. Aorist passive participle neuter. It's agreeing back with toxiphos, the third declension noun here. So when it forms its aorist passive, it's got a phi in the ending. So there would have been a, instead of getting a theta, we're getting the pit is turning into a phi. The theta is gone, it gets absorbed into the phi. But because we now have an aspirate, that would have given us 2 aspirates separated by a vowel. And so by Grassmann's law, the first aspirate deaspirates into a tor. And that's why we're getting a tor there. So it's from dia thrupto, which is to shatter. And so this is the aorist passive participle. So the sword having shattered, trichtha tekai tetrachtha, in 3 pieces or 4 pieces. Ek pese, from ekpipto, it fell from his hand. So that's a lovely line. The sound of the line is meant to mimic what's happening in the story, that there was an almighty crash and lots of sound, and the sword breaks up into 3 or 4 pieces. Very effective line. This expression is also used, I think, once in the Odyssey as well, with similar effect. The son of Atreus, oimoxen. This is from. This is to cry out, oimoi, woe, alas. So the son of Atreus cried, alas, when he looked, and having looked into broad heaven, looked to the broad sky. And he says, Zeu pater, Father Zeus, ou alos, there is no other of the gods, oteros, more destructive, genitive of comparison, than you. So very, very strong words to say to Zeus, O Father Zeus, there is none other of the gods who is more destructive than you. Surely, so indeed, I asked for Alexander to pay the penalty, tesasthai, to pay the penalty, kakotetos, for his evil doing. Denun, but now the sword, age, this is from agnumi, and this is a passive, an aorist passive. The sword is broken for me in my hands. So my sword is broken in my hand. And the ek is a preverb with this verb here. This one is from aiso. Aiso is to dart. Now it's been morphed quite a bit. This is the aorist passive. So that's augmented. This has got some sort of perhaps gamma here that augments to a chi before the, the root of this is probably a key with a chi or kappa, or possibly a gamma, and it's been turned into a chi, aspirated before the theta. So it literally was caused, it's a causative really, was caused to dart. And it goes with the ek. So the sword, it's literally, my enkos, my spear, was darted out, was caused to dart out for me from, that's that fin ending, from my palm, etosion, in vain, nor did I strike him. And so poor old Menelaus is somewhat perturbed by this. His spear has done no good, and his sword has fallen to pieces. And we'll resume this in a later video.